Um, all right. Thanks so much for being here this morning. I really appreciate. I know it's early, for some of us earlier than for others. My name is Leah Marshall, and I'm very happy to be here this morning to present to you Educators Need OER too. So we have an example of a collaborative peer learning book project that supports both faculty and staff development. And next slide. Thank you, Matthea. Here's our abstract. I'm sure you've already seen it, and we'll be going over all of it, of course. Next slide. So here's our agenda. So we'll start with our welcome, introductions, and warm up. We'll go into a brief introduction. We'll look at the need, the benefits, and then a little bit of the planning, logistics, and lessons learned, and then wrap up with question and answer. Feel free to put anything in chat that you want to ask, and one of us will be able to get to you. Next slide. And introducing my wonderful facilitators, co-facilitators. We have here Matthea Marquart, and she's waving there, our Assistant Dean for Online Education and a Senior Adjunct Lecturer at Columbia University School of Social Work. Also, I am joined by Katherine Segal. We've worked on numerous projects together, one of our longtime adjunct lecturers, and also is teaching at other institutions. Myself, I'm the manager of course development and an adjunct instructor. And here's some of our contact information. We'll share this later as well. All right, next slide. So we weren't sure if we were going to have a Q&A box or meeting chat. So we did bring in some poll everywhere. So we'll see how that works out. And so there'll only be about 3 of those. We may just put them in chat. It depends on how tech goes this morning. So that's really, it's really interactive. We really want to hear from you as we go as well. So next slide. So we do have the poll everywhere question. What motivated you to come to this session this early morning? And so you can either go to poll everywhere, you can scan the QR code. I know that gets complicated. If you don't want to do it on your phone, you may have the app already. Feel free to answer in any of the ways that you want. If neither of those or none of those work for you, happy to have them in chat as well. So again, what motivated you to come to this session? Oh, thanks, Katherine. Thanks for putting that in there. All right, I assume that there's some responses coming in. All right, so Matthea, thank you for that. Having a conversation with people who want to also learn from each other's perspectives. You want to hear about faculty and staff support. We've got some thumbs up here. Thanks, Jennifer. So to learn how faculty can use OER for their own professional development, that's perfect. Thanks for sharing. And Mark, I'd love to find resources to help other faculty members become more comfortable. Yeah, comfort with implementing OER, and some thumbs up for you as well. All right, well, that sounds like a good place to start. I appreciate all of your input. And Matthea, I didn't know if we were going to go to the poll everywhere or if...
We don't have any poll everywhere responses because
Got it.
chat is just so much
It
easier. So
is.
why don't we skip poll everywhere and just use chat?
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Um, and Michelle, thanks so much. As a librarian who supports OER, you're always looking for help. Great. we love librarians. So thank you so much for being here. So again, here are our objectives, which you've likely already read. And so we'll go over these during our session. All right, and I will hand it over to Matthea.
All right. Thank you so much, Leah. Thanks for kicking us off here. Whoa. Um, Sorry. There we go. All right. So I'm going to introduce this book for you, and maybe Katherine or Leah can put the link into the chat as well. It was co-edited by myself, Leah, Rebecca Chung, and Kristen Garay, and the foreword is by Ray Schroeder. It is free to read or listen to, and it's optimized for mobile if that's easier for folks as well. We also put additional resources on this website. On this website, we put like how to use this for asynchronous training or synchronous training, just-in-time performance support, or for if you want to see presentations about the book. We love talking about it. We have a lot of authors. This is a highlight slide for me. I just love seeing all the many people who volunteer their time to participate in this. And we have the links to their bios in the slides too, and we'll share the slides after. We've been honored to get a few awards for the book, and that's a motivator for folks who are participating as volunteers. We also have really nice blurbs from the book, including from Alex Pickett at SUNY. And I'm not going to read through these. You can take a look at the slides later if you like. But really, our blurbs are focused on the practicality of the book. It's very, very specific. So if it's something that you're interested in learning more about this topic, it is a really helpful and practical book. So there's a couple other blurbs here. And to share some analytics, we published this book about a year and a half ago, roughly, maybe, well, officially published about less than a year ago. And we've already had 33,000 views and 10,000 PDF downloads and lots of unique readers in different countries. So that's also a motivator for folks who are volunteering their time on something like this. And why did we write the book? We actually, we were getting ready for a faculty development training, and there was a new rollout of an updated Adobe Connect platform that we use for our synchronous online classes. And as we were thinking about the training, we were like, well, we want folks to look back at the training materials. We want the training to have life after just the workshop. And so we were thinking about what would people use, and in academia it seems like folks really like books, and so we thought that having a book instead of a PDF handout might make it more likely that folks would use the ideas covered in the training. And then also we have a lot of folks who work with our online campus who really want to publish. That's a professional goal for a lot of people. And we wanted to create an opportunity for that. So in our trainings, we often will train people on or share experiences about how to publish. And so this was an opportunity we were giving folks to do something together in a supportive way. And then for the OER tie-in, we really love to create things that we share with a wider field, because it matches our social work values and Columbia's mission and our school social work's mission, and our professional values as social workers. So OER was kind of the way we wanted to go, so that there was just something we could put out into the world that created more value for people. So in terms of, I mentioned connecting to the mission, I'm just going to skip quickly over these. Also, our dean has 4 pillars that she's focused on, and doing an OER book really connected with the impact, the visibility, the excellence, and the community. All right. In terms of tying in with our faculty development, the way that we do faculty development for our online campus is we have foundational training and then we have ongoing training. And the workshop that this book was developed for was one of our ongoing trainings. So that's something, it was called it's number 3 here, the Advanced Workshop on Designing Engaging and Interactive Synchronous Online Class Sessions. And so it fit into our faculty development overall that we offer for our adjuncts and our staff, and our full-time faculty too. It connected to our training in that during trainings, our folks with our online campus learn different ideas, but they also share ideas. So they're learning from each other. We always have peer learning. And so folks who shared in the trainings, we invited them to contribute chapters to the book. So that kind of moved it from sharing in a workshop to actually writing something. And then we now we use the book for ongoing mentoring and training as well. So it's created a cycle. All right, so I'm going to hand back over to Leah.
Great. Thanks so much, Matthea. Um, and there is a question from Richard in the chat about institutional support or funding for this project. And so I can answer that first question. Thanks for asking. This was a passion project. This was all volunteer. This was our community sharing with each other and lifting each other up. So no funding. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much for adding that, Matthea. And the second question was the material written by various contributors, developed and edited by a developmental editor. What about ongoing support provided? Great. We are going to go over that, and particularly when Matthea comes back on. So thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go into what the need is for educators, right? So I think most of us are more familiar with OER for students, right? But because adjunct instructors are increasingly reliant, I'm sorry, other way around, because institutions are so much more reliant, up to 50% of institutional instructors are adjuncts, right? So there is no guarantee for their position, right? There are no benefits, right? And they have little input or power at the institution, right? So these are folks that need support. They need institutional resources, professional development. And as someone who started out as an adjunct instructor myself, I can say that I was very curious about what resources I did have access to through the institution. And I did feel a little bit of disconnect from the institution as well, right? And so what we're doing is we're providing multiple things. We are able to lift each other up. We are able to create a community. We are able to share information and resources. And so all of this really has so much benefit. And though it was a passion project and it was free, it really is also lifting up OER as a whole, right? So trying to give the validity to open resources, right? And so this is a really important part of lifting up both our instructors, but also I would say also OER, right? So exposing OER to instructors and also having them be more comfortable with sharing other OER with their students who are also in need, right? So we have a question for you. It's in the next slide. So instead of poll everywhere, the question to you is how likely are you to use a free resource in your own professional development and why? And I'll put that question in chat as well, in case it's easier for you to see it there. So the reason why we're curious about this question, and I'll just talk while you're thinking about your answers, is because it is an open resource, right? It is free. And so how likely are you to want to use something that's free for your own professional development? It became a question we started asking ourselves, right? So I can think of, oh, the idea that if I pay for something, then there is value, right? There's something that happens psychologically with us about paying for something and then giving it value. But if it doesn't, if you're not paying for it, what does that mean, right? So as you think about, your response, think about, continuing education, credits or units that you've paid for versus what you've gotten for free. A textbook or a book that you've used for free versus something that you've paid for. So really curious to hear from you all. And Matthea, Katherine, if you have any thoughts or input, I'd love to hear from you as well. All right. Thank you so much for your additions. And now they're all rolling in. Now I can't keep up with them. Um, all right, so it would be great. So updates can be made and added without having to buy another edition. Yes, the bane of so much of what we do. Thank you so much. And Matthea, thanks for your addition as well. Michelle says you're highly likely to use resources after vetting the creators. Yes, and their expertise in the area. So Lorena says, I prefer OER, free resources. Jackie, I'd be really likely to use a free resource, partially because it's easy for you to share and build community for users around. Great, thank you. We've definitely found that as well. Since our department adopted OERs for the first year writing courses, faculty and I are interested in finding resources that you can help with our professional development. That's great. Thanks so much, Tony. I hope this is useful for you. And Caroline says, with so much information now available free online, you're inclined to value free resources. Yes, I feel like maybe that shift is starting to happen. Thank you so much, Caroline. And Jennifer, I would likely use them since they're free, but you're a little bit old school. I can understand that and prefer physical desk copies of the resource to digital. Well, I know that Matthea has something to share about that as well. And it goes into our kind of process. And I agree. I think all of us having a physical copy would be really great. I think we'd all really enjoy, especially our authors. And of course, as an editor, would really be proud to have a desk copy as well. So thanks for adding that, Jennifer. All right, well, I don't see any other chat coming in. I'm happy to hand it over to you, Katherine.
Thank you, Leah. All right, next I'd like to talk about some of the benefits and uses that we've seen for this text, as well as the OER for educators in general. First up are the benefits we saw to being a contributor. And of course, you see we have two of our co-editors here, and I'm one of the chapter author contributors. And so one thing to highlight is because a lot of us were new to publishing, new to being authors and writing chapters, that developing the skills around the writing process was a valuable piece of faculty development. So engaging in that process was really helpful to us. Receiving peer support, as authors, receiving peer support from co-authors, as well as from the editors throughout the writing process, learning a lot more about the OER arena, particularly how it compared to traditional publishing, learning about that process, and really helping to break down some of those barriers as well, right? That keep some of us from being able to enter these spaces and share our experiences. Because this was a collaborative process, and you saw so many faces on that slide of all the contributors, right? It didn't take a single person, right? Just one of us to sort of shoulder having the knowledge and experience of all of those ideas in order to generate one text through a traditional publisher. We were able to collaborate. And then that collaboration piece is really important to us. And it helped foster and continue our sense of community in the CSSW online campus. As we worked with our co-authors, again, this sense of peer-to-peer learning. Not only do I have something, a valuable experience or idea that I get to share with my peers, but I also get to learn from my peers. And that is through reading the text as well as through sharing our ideas in trainings and workshops. And so for some of us, we had presented on ideas during faculty development trainings, and then we're able to grow those ideas into a chapter. Others were able to write a chapter and then come to the faculty development trainings and present on those ideas. Some of us have presented on the experience of moving from a presenter to a chapter author. So lots of levels of interaction um, from our contributors on how they noticed and were able to utilize this as a professional development activity. All right, and I think we have a couple examples on the next slide. So here we have one of the chapter authors and lecturers, Christine Holmes, noting her experience, again, about being new to publishing. And she shares in this quote about some of the lessons that she learned through this process. And next slide. And next from Rebecca Chung, one of the co-editors, noting that sense of community and collaboration. Again, being able to learn from each other and create something as a community. All right, and the next slide. And so the next is how we use this OER text and other ways for other projects, how they may also be used in the future. So we thought about, again, who's reading this and how are we sharing this? So noting that we continue, even as the editors, as the authors, we continue to go back to the text and learn from each other. We continue to look for specific skills because we found it important to give concrete step-by-step directions in some cases. And so it's holding a lot of logistics that have been really helpful. I'll share even for one of my chapters that was very logistically based. I've just gone back to this chapter to remember, oh, right, those were the steps, because I took screen grabs and it's like very descriptive and they're like, oh, right. I thought of something and I wrote it down, but I hadn't committed it to memory. I committed it to the chapter to hold on to that information for me. So those really concrete skills, as well as just a treasure trove of creative ideas on how would I engage my class more, or how do I think about certain activities to be more engaging. So we continue to use the text, sharing with our colleagues, right? As questions come up, oh, let me send you the link to one of these chapters. I think this would be really helpful. And sharing on our own social media, right? Especially as we have so many contributors, and certainly a sense of ownership over the text and wanting to get this out there. Then we also thought about how folks in mentor or supervisor roles, manager roles, are using the text with their supervisees and their mentees. So sharing specific chapters, again, to answer specific questions, show the logistics, as well as generating ideas around being creative and utilizing different strategies. And as Matthea mentioned earlier, also using the whole document, the link to the text, as a workshop handout. And again, because it's free, because it's open access, that barrier of cost is out the window. And so we can share freely in all of these different ways and settings. And I think we have a couple of examples on the next slide. Here we have Kristen Garay, one of the co-editors. Again, as a co-editor, as an expert in this online pedagogy field, mentioning that she still also goes back, reads the text. What are those activities? Maybe things are feeling stale in the classroom. Let's check out an activity mentioned by one of the contributors. And on the next slide, a very similar from Adeline Medeiros, being able to, again, go back to the text again and again, and not only use specific techniques, but adapt it, right? Using those ideas in her classroom. All right, and I think the next one is our agenda. So again, passing it back to Matthea for the next section.
Thank you so much, Katherine. All right, so we're going to share some of the project planning and logistics, go back to that question about budget, and we can also talk about generating community through this project, which Katherine touched on as well. So in terms of timeline, it was actually a pretty ambitious timeline. We decided to write the book in March 2022, and by August, the workshop that we intended the book for was happening. So we didn't even start getting chapters in until April, May. And so all summer we were having a lot of editing feedback back and forth. The developmental editing was kind of um, part of the feedback with the chapter authors. And we did very light copy editing. We didn't really do copy editing very much. We asked the authors to be responsible for that since it was a free project. And when I say the book was published, so the way that the platform that we chose works, every chapter gets its own URL and you can upload it at any time, but it's kind of like a Google Doc in that the URL is live, but it's not searchable online until you publish the book. So the book published in December 2022, although all the chapters were available before then, and then we began sharing the book in January. And as Leah mentioned earlier, this year, maybe early next year, we're adding a couple final chapters, and then we'll set the book up for print on demand through Amazon. And the nice thing about that is that it won't cost us anything to pre-print, so it'll just be an option for folks who want to have a hard copy. I know I'll get one for myself, and we're just gonna likely do it at cost, whatever the cost is for doing it, so that we don't have to worry about profits and dealing with taxes and things like that. So again, the book had no budget, but it also didn't have a lot of costs. So we chose an ebook platform that was free with no ads, and the no ads was really important for us because I don't know if you've gone to look at free resources that do have ads, and sometimes the ads are things that you yourself find questionable. Like I've seen social work materials sometimes up with an ad that looks kind of like it's suggesting violence against women, for example, and it's not a great juxtaposition. So we really, really did not want any ads involved, and the platform has committed to not having ads ever. Everyone involved was a volunteer, so the editors and the authors, and as Leah said, it was a passion project. When we were making decisions about it, we did think about print, but ebooks were, it's open access, and with our timeline, a print book wouldn't have been realistic at all. And as the more we went through the project, the more we really liked having the ebook. It was very rewarding to have someone submit a chapter. We go back and forth on the edits, and then the chapter could be uploaded and available immediately. So a couple times I was online at the same time as a chapter author, and we were emailing back and forth, and the same day they submitted their chapter, we were able to get it up into the book. And so we could see the book being built as we went, and that was really fulfilling and rewarding, as opposed to having the delayed gratification of everything has to be done and everything has to be perfect before anyone can see it. For the platform that we chose, we actually really like this platform. It's committed to be free with no ads. I had written an author or a chapter on a different book that was on this platform, and I had a really good experience with that. So that's how I learned about the EdTech Books platform. Leah and I met with the platform administrator, Royce Kimmins, and publishing is kind of a long-term relationship. So you have to trust the platform and the administrator. And Royce has been really amazing to work with. He's very responsive to questions or requests even. And we have faith that the platform is going to be up long term. It's also very user-friendly. So the way that it works, folks submit their chapters in Google Docs, and then you click a button to upload the chapter from Google Docs into the system, and including the images. The images go up as well. So there's actually not a lot of work to get something from a Google Doc into the book itself. Once it's up in the book, then you make some edits, and then you can publish it there. Another thing that we really liked is that it's very user-friendly. They've got AI-generated audio. They've got AI-generated language translation. So the point of the platform is to let you focus on the book itself and not on the tech, not having to worry about the tech. It's got great analytics, and it's optimized for mobile, it's accessible, it's got search engine optimization, but we also really liked that chapter authors have some power as well over their own chapters in that they can see their chapter analytics. So they don't have to ask us how many people have looked at my chapter. They can go check it out themselves, and they can control their own bios. So if someone changes their name, or if they change jobs and their title's different, they don't have to come to us and say, hey, can you update my bio? They can do that directly too. So in terms of community, I think it helps to build community when the people in the community are empowered. So some lessons learned. It took more time than we expected. So you saw we had that very ambitious timeline, and yet we've still got a couple chapters left to go. So it has taken more time than we expected. Also, it's very helpful to help the contributors see the value for themselves and for others, because everyone was a volunteer, and to communicate with chapter authors as well throughout the process, including any delays, any expectations about edits, and if it's shared on social media, things like that. And as you saw on the slides, we've also been inviting authors to contribute to presentations by contributing quotes, because we really want to uplift their voices. And for us, we had a lot of authors who were new to publishing, as Katherine mentioned. So we wanted to make sure we provided trauma-informed feedback, and we were trying to build people's confidence as we went. We also realized that as we were going, this was, when COVID was really going strong, and it's still going strong, but it was newer at that time. And there were some communities that were more impacted by COVID or other macro forces. And so if we wanted to have diversity among our contributors, we needed to provide extra support and flexibility. And that's something to think about, how macro forces impact a project. We had a chapter template that was designed to be supportive, and we really tried to explain as much as we could to make it self-sufficient for authors. And it was a template that was in a Google Doc, so that also was changing over time. Someone mentioned that you can revise books when they're OER, and having the chapter template that way. Also, as questions came in, we would add them to the template so people could see the answers right away. If you're looking for ways to use the book, you can spark ideas for your own classroom. You can use it for coaching and mentoring, or for different trainings. And I'd like to hand it back over to Katherine.
Thank you, Matthea. And we just have a few final thoughts, and then I'll look in the chat to grab some questions as well. So a couple of resources that may be helpful to you if you're interested in creating an OER resource for yourself and with colleagues. This book chapter is helpful, as well as this podcast episode. And then on the next slide, we have a couple of resources related to online teaching, online pedagogy from the CSSW Online Campus blog. Thank you. All right. So again, let's grab some questions. Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. And we also have one last question for you, which is, what is your key takeaway from the session this morning? So love to hear feedback and takeaway points as we go through the questions in the last couple of minutes. And Caroline asks, how did you decide that an ebook was the best platform for sharing this content, as opposed to a website or a resource page or an online course? So I wonder, Matthea, if you have some thoughts on that, making that decision, but also keeping in mind too that there was a course also. There's a training, and that this became, a part of that training as well as this living document to take forward. Matthea.
Thanks, Catherine. So, Caroline, that's a really good question, and we debated, and what we came to as a hypothesis is that our training participants would value more getting a book at the training and be more likely to go back and look at it. And that's, because we're in academia, books have like a special magic to them that a website doesn't have in the same way. And so we thought that the book would make it, it would help with the training transfer from learning something in training to actually doing it. And then it had a broader life potential as well. So having the book format has made it easier to share. And people are interested in books in a way that they're less interested in websites or differently interested in websites. So that's also something because, for example, Catherine shared that we have a blog, which is basically a website, but it's harder to maintain the blog than it is to do a book. So oddly, that ended up being the case where we could write chapters and then we're kind of done with the chapter, whereas the blog has more pressure to keep it updated more frequently and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you,
So
Matthea.
yeah.
We also have Caroline has some more questions for us. Thank you, Caroline. Did any faculty contributors have reluctance to contributing, as many faculty already give a lot to the community, and what was their mindset? And I'd say personally, as a contributor, I felt it was a way to share to an even larger community of online educators, and not yeah, I don't know if any of it, if Matthea, if you heard any feedback from, well, I already did a presentation. I don't want to give any more. I don't know if anyone had that sense. From speaking with colleagues, this was, a new platform and a way of sharing our ideas even further.
Yeah, I think that folks, it was optional, so nobody was forced or coerced to do it. We didn't have to persuade anybody. We just provided this opportunity, and folks were really excited about it. We've been building our online campus community for a long time, and we've had, 5 years of trainings, 6 years of trainings. So we really know people, and we know that a lot of the folks who work with us wanted an opportunity to contribute to a book. And so the perception was more like less of an obligation or pressure to contribute and more like, this is an opportunity to do something you've said you wanted to do. We're kind of listening to your feedback and your requests and creating an opportunity to do something you want to do.
Yeah, thank you, Matthea. And if we can move to the last slide as well, I think that's where our contact details are. All right. So just keeping in mind, if you'd like to contact us, I think if they want a copy of the slide deck, they should email us. I'm not sure if it's sent out through SUNY. So be in contact if you have additional questions. And yeah, Focus has in the comments, right, it feels like ed tech is less cumbersome than those wanting to print. And I think that, again, that's a great way to look at it as well, right? There were fewer systemic barriers to us being able to share these ideas, compared to if we had wanted to go the route of a traditional publisher. Not just the time frame is different, but other barriers as well. So great thoughts. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being here this early morning. I hope you enjoyed our presentation. We'd love to hear from you, and have a great day. Matthea and Leah, any final thoughts there?
Yeah, thanks so much, Catherine. And would love to hear from you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And feel free to connect on LinkedIn too or elsewhere. part of the fun of this is building community with folks. So thank you.